There, it's me, Dr. Missy Hillock, and I'm here with an energy forecast for the week of May 31st to June 6th, 2026. So May 31st brings us our second full moon of the month. It's not common to have two full moons in one month, and when we do, it's called a blue moon. So this full moon on the 31st is the full moon in Sagittarius, and when we have two full moons, it's like two opportunities in one month to surrender, to let go, to go into the moon phase of kind of celebrating what has happened during the new moon phase, all the seeds that we plant and all the things that we do, the manifestation, the creation, and then this full moon phase is this point where we sort of surrender and we allow and we accept. And this full moon in particular is leading us into a very, very deep kind of turning point in the year. If you follow any astrology at all, you know the second half of June and early July, there's a lot of planetary shifts and alignments and things that are happening within the collective and within the cosmos that are causing some major twists and turns. And so this is sort of like the last letting go, the last allowing, the last surrender before this new shift is coming. So this week's reading, I think, is really applicable to this full week as well as next week, kind of this whole 2 week full moon cycle that we're in. So I pulled some cards to guide us through it. And when it's a big moon cycle, I like to pull from one of my Moonology decks. This is the Moonology deck by Yasmin Boland. And not ironically, I did pull the full moon card, and it says surrender to the divine, because again, the full moon itself and the full moon phase is all about letting go. It's think about the new moon as when we set those intentions and we make a wish upon a star and we work to, gather, the harvest. And then the full moon time is when we go, okay, I've done the work. Now I look and see what happened. What have I received? What has shifted? What do I no longer want? And we give thanks and we let go and we say, okay, this was the product of all of those beautiful intentions. I'm going to keep what serves me. I'm going to let go of the rest. We kind of go through that phase and then we go into another new moon cycle. So this is how the energy of the moon works. So getting this call to surrender to the divine, I think, is so serving, not just for the full moon, but as I mentioned, for this particular full moon and the energy that we're going into later in June. There's also when you hear the phrase surrender to the divine, there is a Hindu translation of that's Om Namo Narayani. And that is one, it's a great one to chant. It's a great one to just meditate on or sing along to, because it is this beautiful letting go. And if you've heard me many times speak on this, I really believe one of the greatest spiritual acts we can do as a human is stand in such divine trust that we allow ourselves to let go, that we loosen the reins, we let go of controlling everything and just letting things be as they are. And so that is our invitation for sure this week, also next week, as we lean into this big energetic shift coming. The second deck that I pulled from is one of my faves, The Shaman's Dream by Colette Baron-Reid and Alberto Villoldo. It is a beautiful deck that I've studied with for a very long time, and I actually pulled two cards. The first one I pulled is card number 58, Vanishing Mirror, and the message here is ego sublimation. So how does this relate to the full moon and everything that I've spoke about already? Well, first of all, again, just vanishing mirror. It's like this dissolving of illusions. It's as if we're looking at the mirror of ourselves and seeing parts of ourselves that are ready to shift, change, let go, fade away, and also parts of ourselves that remain, the true parts, the parts that are more aligned with our real gifts and talents and expression and desires, and not so much those that have sort of been forced upon us or put upon us based on our circumstances or choices that we've made in the past that have led us in a certain direction or societal expectations. It's really this call for a return to self and truly a surrender, a letting go, a starting over in a way that's very inward. And yes, that's going to apply to some outward choices, but it's also a very, very inward process. And ego sublimation, from a psychological perspective, it's actually a defense mechanism. It's one where when we have things within us that feel more dense or feel more negative, maybe it is a feeling of wanting to deeply control and manipulate something, or feeling out of control and therefore making choices that are trying to shift into being in control again, or having maybe some negative urges, some anger, some emotional expressions that we don't feel like we have a safe and healthy way to express. When we participate in ego sublimation, we are expressing those deeper, darker, heavier inner things in a way that is socially acceptable, in a way that looks productive or helpful. And even that in itself can sometimes get people in a pickle. So I'll give an example. Let's say it's someone who is funneling a lot of energy into a health related journey. Maybe it's physical fitness or nutrition, and it can kind of go to the extreme. So someone becomes a compulsive exerciser, or becomes really, really overly cautious about nutrition, and then sort of spirals in a way that becomes unhealthy through these seemingly healthy acts. That's how ego sublimation works. And in relation to the whole message that we're talking about, the way I want to tie this in is the idea that when we are expressing, again, feelings, emotions, all the things bubbling inside us, and we're looking for these healthy outlets, it's not to say those aren't positive things, but this is a real look at what motivates us to do what we do. Why are we making the choices? And are we going to an extreme? Are we going to a version that is still just excess control or unhealthiness because we push it in a certain way? And so again, this is a real call to look within and to allow things to fade away that don't serve us and that aren't authentic and true, and know that this is preparing us for a big shift and restart. This is like kind of wipe the slate clean and know thyself before the big changes that are happening. And when I pulled this card from this deck, after kind of sitting with the energy, I felt called to pull a second card. And so this wasn't a card that came out in the first drawing, but I pulled a second card to follow up to this. And I got card number 2, Beloved. And the message here is radical acceptance. And I don't think there's any more beautiful card to go with this, with the message that I'm sharing, especially in relation to our full moon card and this surrender, because radical acceptance is just another version of surrender to the divine. Om Namo Narayani. It is this letting go and allowing to the extreme. Essentially, a message that would go along with radical acceptance is, I allow anything that's coming into my world to occur because I know if it's coming into my world, it has a purpose for me. That's radical acceptance. So this is a real call for this. And I find it interesting that the image here is this burning heart, because the idea of radical acceptance can sometimes burn us up like a fire, right? We can feel consumed in the flames of this energy because it is such an ego breakdown. And so with this, coming out with this to follow up on this message is no surprise, because it's idea that this construct, the psychological construct of who we are and who others are and how society works and humanity works, it's these big, big things that are, if you just look around in the world, you see so much is changing, and right before our eyes, outwardly and inwardly. And this is just this reminder that shifts are happening, and radical acceptance is what is being called for here. Because it's like, if things are going to occur, we can do one of two things. We can be really bent out of shape about it. We can try to control it, change it, spend a lot of energy fighting against what is, or we can allow it to be, and which is far less energy, but it takes an allowance. It's not passive, it's not a passiveness, it's not a turn a blind eye type of energy. It is truly a radical acceptance to see where is the point of power? Where's the point of change? Where's the point of a blessing and a miracle? What is happening for me here? That's the challenge. That's the beautifulness of radical acceptance. It's not indifference. It's a really elevated knowing and trust and faith that occurs here. And the message with the beloved card also is preparing us for something that is coming into our world. This radical acceptance is giving us preparation to receive a person, an opportunity, an experience, a life path forward that is coming soon as we shift into the energy that I've spoken about that's happening in a few weeks. And so know that all of this right now, if you're feeling in despair, if you're feeling confused about your life, if you're feeling like a deflated balloon and you're just like, what is life? Or if you're feeling uninspired, if you're like me and you've gone through a massive loss, I've just lost my best friend a month ago, and feeling like, will I ever feel excitement again? Will I experience the same level of joy again? Sometimes it's hard to harness that when you're holding on to so many things that have occurred that you feel like just slipped through your fingers, when you tried so hard to control and to create a situation and it didn't go the way you hoped it would. It's easy for us to go, wow, now what? What is it? What is this all about? And so this brings good news in that this phase right now of feeling rather empty or off track or shaken, rattled, maybe even without guidance or purpose, isn't lost. We need those times where we get still and we get quiet and things kind of feel uncomfortable or numb or unsettling, because that is what happens before we make a positive change or we receive a positive experience, and it's just like waiting for this next thing to blossom. So know that this is good news. And then the last deck that I pulled from is Sacred Traveler by Denise Lynn. And I don't use this one very often, but I love some of her other decks, and I felt called to it this time. And the card that I pulled is Grace and Gratitude. And the message is, through gratitude, joy expands. And based on what I just shared, this card really, I think, polishes off the energy forecast for this week in this phase, because in order to get to a place of grace and gratitude, to harness the energy of that, to say, I can see how something right now feels or looks or seems undesirable, hard, not what I want, any of those things, and to still be able to read between the lines and see the little threads of positivity, possibility, blessings, miracles, ways that something could be taking us in a different direction that we cannot foresee, that could be really fantastic. This is what we're being called to do here. And it's not toxic positivity. It's not just saying, oh, yeah, I'm happy about everything. I have a friend who, her mom, she has a saying, and no matter what's going wrong, she says, hallelujah anyway. And we laugh about that because there is such a thing as toxic positivity, in that it's like the pulling the wool over the eyes, right? Turning the blind eye. And I really don't see gratitude in that way. I see gratitude as the silver lining, the moment to grasp the moments and the parts of moments that actually are happening for us, even when it's painful, even when it's ugly, even when we don't like it and think we don't want it, right? And I needed this reminder. Through gratitude, joy expands, because in the loss of my best friend, it's felt harder to feel joy, especially when I think about the future, when I think about the things that we would normally do together and all of the things we never got to do that we wanted to do. And so it's hard for me right now to harness deep joy, which is normally one of my strengths. I'm normally very good at that. And so I needed the reminder that through gratitude, joy expands, because sometimes we have to hold the vision first, and then we see it manifest. And so to feel the gratitude before there's the thing to see that we're grateful for is the creation of the miracle, right? It's the energy that brings that into form and that moves through us outwardly into the form around us. So harness the power of your heart, harness the gratitude and the beauty within you, even when you can't specifically name what it is. Harness that beautiful flow of love and gratitude to allow yourself to deepen your joy as we move through this time of surrender and into this incredible phase that's going to be happening later in the month with our next new moon and all the shifts happening there. So I know you can do it. I can do it. I hope this message supports you this week. And certainly, if you don't want to miss any of these messages, feel free to follow my YouTube channel here. You can also sign up for my mailing list where you can get some beautiful emails and support there a few times a week. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great week, friends.